You played me. Now it's my turn to play the game.
I'm watching my wife, Vanessa, apply lipstick like she's painting a masterpiece. And I can't shake the feeling that I'm about to become the fool in someone else's story. She's getting ready for another one of those networking events at her tech company. The kind where ambitious executives supposedly discuss quarterly projections over champagne and canapes. The kind where she always forgets to wear underwear. "Don't wait up, David," she says, not bothering to look at me in the mirror. "This could run late, very late." I'm sitting on our king-sized bed in our perfectly appointed suburban bedroom, watching the woman I married 15 years ago transform into someone I barely recognize. The house around us screams success, marble countertops, hardwood floors, a 3-car garage, but it feels hollow as a movie set. Everything looks perfect from the outside, which in this neighborhood means everything's probably rotting from within. "New dress?" I ask, though I already know the answer. It's a black number that cost more than most people make in a week, and it fits her like it was painted on. "Marcus bought it for me," she says casually, like that's a normal thing for a boss to do. "He said I needed to look the part for tonight's presentation." Marcus Kellerman, her CEO. 50-something, silver-haired, drives a Bentley, and has the kind of smile that makes you want to count your fingers after shaking his hand. I've met him exactly 3 times at company functions, and each time he looked at me like I was something stuck to his shoe. "What kind of presentation happens at 9 p.m. on a Friday?" I ask. She finally turns around and I see that look in her eyes, the one that says I'm asking the wrong questions. "The kind that gets people promoted, David. The kind that pays for this house and your little investment hobby." "My little investment hobby?" Right, the portfolio that's worth more than her annual salary, but she calls it a hobby because I work from home in sweatpants instead of strutting around a glass office tower in $1,000 suits. A car honks outside, not just any car. I can tell by the sound it's something expensive, something that purrs instead of rumbles. "That's my ride," she says, grabbing her purse. No kiss goodbye, no love you, just the click of heels on hardwood and the slam of our front door. I walk to the window and watch her slide into the passenger seat of Marcus's Bentley. Even from the second floor, I can see her lean over and kiss him on the cheek. Or maybe it wasn't his cheek. The car pulls away and I'm left standing in my own house, feeling like a stranger. If this were a Stephen King novel, I'd be the guy who gets eaten by his own dog. Instead, I'm just getting screwed by my wife and her CEO. I pour myself 3 fingers of bourbon and settle into my home office. Vanessa's laptop is still open on the kitchen counter. She was checking emails while her hair dried. She's always been careless with passwords, using our dog's name for everything. Rusty 123. Not exactly Fort Knox security. I shouldn't look. I know I shouldn't look, but the bourbon makes me curious, and curiosity makes me stupid. Her email is a goldmine of corporate backstabbing and office politics, but it's the text messages that make my blood run cold. Messages between her and Marcus, between her and 3 other female executives, between her and 2 male VPs. They're not discussing quarterly projections. "Can't wait for tonight's special presentation," Marcus wrote yesterday. "Make sure Jennifer and Lisa know what to wear or what not to wear." Vanessa's response. "Already handled. David's working late anyway. He never pays attention to what I'm doing. There's more, so much more. Photos I don't want to see, arrangements I don't want to understand, and a whole network of networking that makes my stomach turn." But what really gets me is the message thread about me. "David's getting suspicious," Vanessa wrote to someone named Catherine. "So handle it," Catherine replied. "Or we handle it for you. He's not going anywhere. His whole portfolio is tied up in our stock options. If he leaves me, he loses everything." I sit back in my chair and stare at the screen. She's right, of course. When we got married, I put everything into a joint investment account heavily weighted toward her company's stock. It seemed romantic at the time, betting our future on her success. Now it feels like the world's stupidest financial decision. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you room to maneuver. I screenshot everything, every message, every photo, every dirty little secret. Then I start digging deeper into the company's financials, cross-referencing with the names I'm seeing in these messages. What I find makes me smile for the first time in months. Marcus and his inner circle aren't just playing musical beds. They're manipulating stock prices, insider trading, and using their little private club as currency for promotions and deals. The SEC would have a field day with this information. My phone buzzes. Text from Vanessa. "Don't wait up. Presentation running very late. Might stay at Catherine's." Catherine, the woman who wants to handle me. I text back. No problem. Working on a new investment strategy. Big moves coming. She doesn't respond. I spend the next 3 hours mapping out their entire operation. By 2 a.m., I have enough evidence to destroy all of them, but I also have something else. A plan. See, the thing about revenge is that it's not a dish best served cold. It's best served hot, messy, and in front of as many people as possible. I'm still awake when Vanessa comes home at 4 a.m., reeking of expensive cologne that isn't mine. She thinks I'm asleep, but I watch her through barely opened eyes as she showers and slides into bed beside me. Good presentation, I mumble, pretending to wake up. Very productive, she whispers. Go back to sleep. But I'm not going back to sleep. I'm wide awake for the first time in years. The next morning, Vanessa is gone before I get up, leaving only a note about some weekend team-building exercise. I call my best friend Jake Morrison, an ex-cop who runs a private investigation business out of a downtown dive bar that has a boxing gym in the back. I need your help, I tell him when he answers. What kind of help? The kind that ends with me either getting my life back or going to prison. There's a pause, then Jake's gravelly laugh. I'll put on coffee. This sounds like it's going to be a long conversation. I grab my keys and head for the door, but something makes me stop and look back at the house. Our perfect suburban fortress with its perfect landscaping and perfect facade. By the time I'm done, none of this will matter. Either I'll be free or I'll have nothing left to lose. Either way, I'm done being the fool in someone else's story. Jake's bar, the Knockout, sits in the part of downtown that gentrification forgot. It's the kind of place where the coffee is strong, the whiskey is stronger, and nobody asks too many questions about why you need a private investigator who keeps a fully equipped boxing gym in the basement. I find Jake behind the bar, reading a newspaper and drinking what looks like motor oil, but smells like coffee. He's pushing 60, built like a fire hydrant, and has the kind of face that's seen too much but still manages to find everything amusing. You look like heck, he says without looking up. Feel worse? I slide onto a bar stool and push my phone across the bar. Take a look at these screenshots. Jake puts on reading glasses and scrolls through the messages. His expression doesn't change, but I see his jaw tighten. After 15 minutes, he sets the phone down and looks at me. How long has this been going on? Based on the message history, at least 6 months, maybe longer. And you want to do what exactly? Divorce her? Take this to the cops? I shake my head. I want to destroy them, all of them. I want them to lose everything they care about, the same way they've been playing with my life. Jake pours 2 glasses of whiskey, even though it's barely noon. You sure about that? Because once we start down this road, there's no going back. You'll become someone different. I'm already someone different. I just haven't admitted it yet. He nods slowly. Okay, but we do this smart. You want revenge, you play chess, not checkers. And the first rule of chess is that you never let your opponent know you're playing until it's too late. Over the next 2 hours, Jake and I map out what he calls the revenge matrix. Every person in Vanessa's little network, their weaknesses, their pressure points, their secrets. Jake has contacts everywhere. Former cops, current cops, journalists, hackers, and what he politely calls information brokers. The key, Jake explains, is to make them destroy each other. You don't want to be the guy with the smoking tool. You want to be the guy who convinced them to shoot themselves. By the time I leave the Knockout, I have a plan that would make Machiavelli proud. Step 1, gather more intelligence. Step 2, identify allies among their enemies. Step 3, create chaos. Step 4, watch them burn. The next few days, I become a ghost in my own life. Vanessa barely notices. She's too busy with her projects and presentations. I use the time to implement Jake's surveillance plan. I hire a company to install security cameras around our house, telling Vanessa it's because of recent break-ins in the neighborhood. What I don't tell her is that the cameras also cover our driveway, front porch, and the street where Marcus picks her up. I start following them. Not like some obsessed stalker, but strategically with Jake's help. We map their patterns, their locations, their habits. The Bentley always goes to the same places. Marcus's penthouse, a private club downtown, and a house in the hills that belongs to Catherine Walsh, the woman who wanted to handle me. Catherine turns out to be Marcus's real second-in-command, a sharp-eyed brunette in her 40s who's been with the company since its startup days. She's also married to a city councilman who's running for mayor. That's what Jake calls leverage. But it's what we discover about Marcus that changes everything. Your wife's boss has a problem, Jake tells me over coffee at the Knockout. His wife filed for divorce 3 months ago. Turns out she hired her own private investigator and she's been building a case against him for years. What kind of case? The kind that involves hidden assets, offshore accounts, and a pattern of inappropriate conduct in the workplace that goes back a decade. She's not just leaving him, she's planning to take him apart piece by piece. I lean back in my chair. Does she know about the current situation? Not yet, but I think she'd be very interested to learn about it. Margaret Kellerman lives in a mansion that makes our house look like a starter home. She's elegant, silver-haired, and has the kind of steel in her eyes that comes from 30 years of marriage to a man like Marcus. When Jake and I show up at her door with a folder full of evidence, she doesn't seem surprised. "I've been waiting for someone like you," she says, leading us into a living room that's bigger than most apartments. I knew Marcus was up to something new, but I didn't know he was involving other people's wives. She pours tea like we're discussing the weather, but her hands are steady, and her voice is cold as winter. "What do you want from me?" she asks. "Partnership," I say. "You want to destroy Marcus legally and financially. I want to destroy him professionally and socially. We can help each other." She smiles, and for the first time, I understand how Marcus built his empire. This woman is terrifying. "What did you have in mind?" That's when I tell her about the charity gala. Every year, Marcus's company sponsors a fundraiser for the local children's hospital. It's a big deal. 500 guests, live auction, local media coverage. Marcus always gives a speech about corporate responsibility and community values. This year's event is in 2 weeks. What if, I suggest, Marcus's speech got interrupted by some very interesting audio and video evidence? Margaret's smile gets wider. "I like you, David. I think we're going to work very well together. But first, I need to deal with Vanessa directly. I need her to understand that the game has changed, even if she doesn't know I'm the one changing it." The opportunity comes 3 days later. Vanessa is getting ready for another presentation. This time it's some trendy bistro downtown where the executives like to have their liquid lunches. She's wearing a new outfit, something Marcus bought her, no doubt, and she's forgotten her underwear again. After she leaves, I pick up the black lace underwear from our bedroom floor and put them in my jacket pocket. Then I make some calls. Jake has a friend named Maria who's a former model turned actress turned whatever pays the bills. She's stunning, smart, and available for what Jake calls social engineering projects. I also make a call to a luxury car rental place. If I'm going to crash Vanessa's party, I might as well do it in style. The bistro is exactly what I expected. Overpriced, over-pretentious, and full of people who think their net worth makes them better than everyone else. I walk in wearing my best suit with Maria on my arm and the keys to a rented Bentley in my pocket. Vanessa is sitting at a corner table with Marcus, Catherine, and 2 other women I recognize from the photos. They're laughing about something, probably at someone else's expense. They stop laughing when they see me. I walk straight to their table, Maria gliding beside me like she owns the place. The entire restaurant goes quiet. It's that kind of place where everyone knows everyone else's business. "Vanessa," I say loudly enough for nearby tables to hear. "You forgot something at home." I pull her underwear out of my pocket and drop them on the table, right next to her salad. The silence is deafening. "David," Vanessa hisses, her face going white then red. "What are you doing here?" "Having lunch with my friend Maria," I say casually. "Maria, meet my wife Vanessa. Vanessa, this is Maria. She's helping me with a new project." Maria extends her hand with a smile that could melt steel. "So nice to meet you, Vanessa. David's told me so much about you." Marcus starts to stand up, but I put my hand on his shoulder and push him back down. Not hard, just firm enough to make my point. "Marcus, right? I've heard so much about your presentations. Vanessa says they're very hands-on." "I think you should leave," Catherine says, trying to take control of the situation. "Oh, I'm leaving," I say. "But first, I wanted to make sure Vanessa had everything she needed for tonight's meeting. You know how forgetful she gets when she's excited about work." I lean down and whisper in Vanessa's ear, just loud enough for the others to hear. "By the way, honey, I moved our investments this morning. Diversification, you know? Can't keep all our eggs in one basket." That's when I see the fear in her eyes. She knows what that means. She knows I know. I straighten up and smile at the table. "Well, we should let you get back to your business lunch. Come on, Maria, I promised you a ride in the Bentley." As we walk away, I hear the explosion of whispered conversation behind us. Someone's phone is already out, probably posting about the scene on social media. By tonight, half the city will know that Marcus Kellerman's star employee got her underwear thrown at her by her husband in the middle of the most exclusive bistro in town. That was either brilliant or insane, Maria says as we get into the Bentley. Maybe both, I admit, but it's just the opening move. That night, Vanessa doesn't come home. She doesn't call, doesn't text, doesn't even send one of her usual lies about working late. For the first time in months, I sleep peacefully. But when I wake up the next morning, I find something that changes everything. There's an envelope under our front door with my name written in block letters. Inside is a single photograph, me and Jake sitting in the knockout with a note written on the back. Stop now or we'll stop you. I call Jake immediately. Someone's been watching us, I tell him. Good, he says. That means we're getting to them. When they start making threats, it means they're scared. What's our next move? We escalate. Time to bring in the big tools. That's when Jake tells me about the others, the other husbands, the other wives, the other people who've been caught in Marcus and Catherine's web over the years. People who've been waiting for someone to make the first move. You're not alone in this, David. You're just the first one brave enough to fight back. By the end of the week, I have an army. The abandoned warehouse where we meet looks like something out of a crime movie, but Jake insists it's the only place in the city where we can talk without being overheard. The building used to house a printing company before the digital revolution ended their business. Now it's just empty space and echoes. Perfect for planning the kind of revenge that requires privacy. There are 6 of us sitting around a folding table under a single hanging light bulb. Me, Jake, and 4 other men whose lives have been destroyed by Marcus Kellerman's network of corruption and manipulation. There's Tom Bradley, whose wife Sarah was fired from the company after she refused to participate in one of Marcus's special projects. She ended up having a nervous breakdown and spending 3 months in a psychiatric facility. Tom's been driving a taxi to pay the medical bills. Next to him sits Robert Chen, a former company accountant who discovered the insider trading scheme and tried to blow the whistle. Marcus had him blacklisted from every accounting firm in the state. Robert's been working at a grocery store for 2 years, trying to support his family on minimum wage. The third man is Frank Morrison, no relation to Jake, despite the name. His daughter, Kelly, was an intern at the company last summer. She was 19, bright, and ambitious. Marcus took a special interest in her development. When Frank found out what kind of mentoring his daughter was receiving, he went to the police. The charges were dropped due to insufficient evidence. But Kelly dropped out of college and hasn't been the same since. The fourth is James Walsh, Catherine's husband, the city councilman who's running for mayor, the man who has no idea his wife is the real power behind Marcus's throne. I've suspected Catherine was having an affair for months, James tells us, his voice hollow. I just didn't know it was part of a whole system, a business model. Jake spreads photos and documents across the table. This isn't just about cheating spouses anymore. We're looking at a criminal enterprise that's been operating for years. Inappropriate workplace conduct, insider trading, blackmail, witness intimidation. These people have destroyed lives. So, what do we do about it? Tom asks. We've all tried the legal route. We've all tried playing by the rules. It doesn't work when the other side owns the referees. We stop playing by their rules, I say. We create our own game. That's when I outline the plan Jake and I have been developing. It's complex, multi-layered, and designed to hit Marcus and his network from every possible angle simultaneously. Phase 1, Information Warfare. We leak selected evidence to financial journalists, the SEC, and Marcus's business competitors. Nothing traceable back to us, but enough to start asking uncomfortable questions. Phase 2, Social Destruction. We orchestrate a series of public humiliations designed to destroy their reputations and credibility. The charity gala is just the beginning. Phase 3, Financial Devastation. We manipulate their own greed against them, using insider information to trigger investigations and stock crashes. Phase 4, Personal Reckoning. We make sure each of them faces consequences for what they've done to our families. This isn't legal, Robert points out. Neither is what they did to us, Frank replies. James nods slowly. I'm in, but I want Catherine's political career destroyed too. She's been using my campaign as cover for her activities. When I'm mayor, she planned to be the real power behind the throne. That won't be a problem, Jake says. In fact, it's part of the plan. We spend the next 3 hours working out details, assignments, and timing. Everyone has a role to play, and everyone has skin in the game. Tom will handle surveillance and documentation. His taxi gives him perfect cover to follow targets around the city. Robert will manage the financial warfare, using his accounting background to identify vulnerabilities in their business operations. Frank will coordinate with law enforcement contacts. Not all cops are corrupt, and some of them remember him from before Marcus destroyed his reputation. James will provide inside information about city contracts and political connections. Jake will handle the technical aspects, surveillance equipment, secure communications, and what he calls direct action. And me? I'm the public face of the operation, the angry husband who's not afraid to make a scene. Remember, Jake tells us as we prepare to leave, we're not criminals. We're citizens seeking justice through unconventional means. Everything we do has to be defensible, even if it's not technically legal. The first phase begins immediately. Robert uses his old company access codes, which Marcus never bothered to revoke, to download financial records and trading data. The information goes to 3 different financial journalists and 2 SEC investigators, all through anonymous channels that Jake's hacker friends set up. Tom starts following Marcus, Catherine, and Vanessa, documenting their movements and meetings. Within a week, we have a complete map of their activities, including several meetings with city officials that James didn't know about. Frank reaches out to his contacts in law enforcement, sharing just enough information to get them interested without revealing our involvement. And James starts asking pointed questions at city council meetings about the company's municipal contracts and tax incentives. The pressure starts to show almost immediately. Marcus hires a private security firm to protect him and conduct threat assessments on his enemies. Catherine starts varying her routines and checking for surveillance. Vanessa becomes paranoid and suspicious, constantly looking over her shoulder. But they make a crucial mistake. They assume the threat is coming from outside their circle. They never suspect that one of their own is feeding us information. That's when things get dangerous. I'm leaving the knockout after a planning meeting when 2 men in expensive suits approach me in the parking lot. They're not cops. Cops don't wear $1,000 shoes, but they have the kind of confidence that comes from knowing they can hurt people without consequences. Mr. Thompson, the taller one says, we need to have a conversation. I don't think we have anything to talk about, I reply, but I'm calculating distances to my car, to the bar, to the street. Oh, but we do. You see, you've been causing problems for some very important people. People who don't like problems. The shorter one steps closer. Maybe it's time you focused on your own life instead of interfering with other people's business. That's when Jake appears behind them with a baseball bat. Gentlemen, he says conversationally, you're trespassing on private property. I suggest you leave before I call the police. This doesn't concern you, old man, the tall one says. Jake smiles. Actually, it does. See, David here is my friend, and this is my property, so it concerns me very much. The short one reaches inside his jacket, but Jake's faster. The baseball bat connects with his wrist with a sound like a branch breaking. The man screams and drops to his knees. Now, Jake says to the tall one, you can help your friend to the hospital, or you can find out what happens when I stop being polite. They leave, but not before the tall one gives me a look that promises this isn't over. They're getting desperate, Jake observes as we watch them drive away. That's good. Desperate people make mistakes. The next mistake comes 2 days later, when Marcus tries to have me arrested. I'm at home, working on my computer, when 3 police cars pull into my driveway. The lead detective is someone I don't recognize, but he has the look of a man who's been paid to see things a certain way. David Thompson, you're under arrest for stalking, harassment, and making terroristic threats. What threats? I ask as they handcuff me. Against Marcus Kellerman and his associates. You've been following them, threatening them, and disrupting their business activities. The arrest is a setup, of course. Marcus pulled strings to get me charged based on fabricated evidence and witness statements. But he made 2 crucial errors. First, he underestimated Jake's connections in the police department. Within an hour, Frank's contacts have identified the detective as someone with gambling debts and a history of taking money from wealthy defendants. Second, he gave us exactly the opening we needed for phase 2 of our plan. While I'm sitting in a holding cell, Jake and the others execute what he calls the nuclear option. Every piece of evidence we've gathered, financial records, surveillance photos, recorded conversations, witness statements, gets released simultaneously to the media, the SEC, the FBI, and the State Attorney General's office. But more importantly, it all gets posted online with a simple message. This is what happens when you try to silence the truth. By the time I'm released on bail 6 hours later, Marcus Kellerman's world is falling apart. The company's stock has crashed, losing 60% of its value in a single day. The SEC has announced a formal investigation. 3 board members have called for Marcus's immediate resignation, and the story is the lead item on every local news broadcast. But the real damage is personal. Margaret Kellerman holds a press conference on the steps of the courthouse where she filed for divorce. She's elegant, composed, and utterly ruthless as she details 30 years of her husband's infidelity, misuse, and criminal behavior. "I've been silent too long," she tells the cameras. "But when I learned that my husband was using his position to exploit other women, including the wives of his employees, I knew I had to speak out." Catherine's political career dies in a single news cycle when recordings of her conversations with Marcus surface, detailing their plans to use James's mayoral campaign as cover for expanding their influence into city government. James holds his own press conference, announcing his withdrawal from the mayoral race and his intention to divorce Catherine. He's devastated but dignified, and the public sees him as another victim rather than a co-conspirator. And Vanessa? Vanessa disappears. I come home from jail to find an empty house. She's taken her clothes, her jewelry, and half our furniture. There's a note on the kitchen counter. "You've destroyed everything. I hope you're happy." I am happy. For the first time in years, I'm genuinely happy. But the story isn't over yet. Marcus and Catherine still have resources, still have allies, and they're not going down without a fight. The charges against me are still pending, and they're using every legal trick in the book to discredit our evidence and silence our witnesses. That's when Jake tells me about the final phase of our plan. "You want to end this permanently?" he asks. "Then we need to make them destroy themselves completely, and I know exactly how to do it." The charity gala is in 3 days. 500 of the city's most powerful people will be gathered in one place, expecting to see Marcus give his annual speech about corporate responsibility and community values. Instead, they're going to get the show of their lives. The Grandview Hotel ballroom is everything you'd expect from a charity event designed to make rich people feel good about themselves. Crystal chandeliers, white tablecloths, servers in bow ties carrying champagne flutes, and 500 guests who collectively own half the city. I'm sitting at a table near the back, wearing a tuxedo I rented for the occasion, and watching Marcus work the room like the predator he is. He's charming, confident, and completely unaware that his world is about to end in front of everyone who matters. Jake is somewhere in the building, along with Tom and Robert. Frank is outside in a news van with 3 journalists who are about to get the story of their careers. James is at the head table, playing his role as the grieving husband who's trying to salvage his political future. Margaret Kellerman is also at the head table, playing the part of the wronged wife who's graciously attending one last company function before her divorce is finalized. She's wearing diamonds and a smile that could cut glass. Catherine is noticeably absent. According to James, she's been in damage control mode since the story broke, trying to save what's left of her career and reputation, but her absence tonight is actually part of our plan. The evening proceeds normally through dinner and the silent auction. Marcus gives his usual performance, humble, charming, talking about the company's commitment to the community and the importance of giving back. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was a pillar of society instead of a criminal who's been using his position to exploit women and manipulate stock prices. But I know better. We all know better. The moment comes when Marcus takes the stage for his keynote address. He's relaxed, confident, basking in the applause of people who still think he's respectable. "Ladies and gentlemen," he begins, "thank you for joining us tonight in support of the Children's Hospital Foundation. Your generosity makes a real difference in the lives of families throughout our community." That's when Jake ends the lights. For exactly 3 seconds, the ballroom is plunged into darkness, long enough for Jake to access the hotel's audiovisual system and replace Marcus's presentation with our own. When the lights come back up, the screen behind Marcus is showing a very different kind of presentation. Photos of Marcus with various women in compromising positions, audio recordings of him discussing stock manipulation and insider trading, video of him at Catherine's house, clearly not there for business reasons. But the centerpiece is a recording we made of Marcus and Catherine discussing their problem employees, including specific plans to frame me for crimes I didn't commit and destroy the lives of anyone who threatened their operation. The ballroom erupts in chaos. Marcus spins around and sees his own crimes displayed in high definition behind him. He tries to speak, but his microphone has been cut. He tries to leave the stage, but Frank's journalist contacts are already there with cameras and questions. Mr. Kellerman, can you comment on the SEC investigation? Is it true that you've been manipulating stock prices? What's your response to the allegations of inappropriate workplace conduct? But Marcus isn't looking at the reporters. He's looking at me. And for the first time since this started, I see real fear in his eyes. That's when Margaret stands up at the head table. "Ladies and gentlemen," she says, her voice carrying clearly across the chaos, "I apologize for this disruption, but I think it's important that you all know the truth about the man you've been honoring tonight." She walks calmly to the microphone, and somehow her presence commands enough attention that the room quiets down. "My husband, Marcus Kellerman, is a criminal," she says simply. "He's been using his position to exploit women for personal gain, manipulate financial markets, and destroy the lives of anyone who threatens his power. The evidence you're seeing tonight is just a fraction of what I've uncovered during our marriage." She pauses, looking directly at Marcus, who's standing frozen on the stage like a deer in headlights. "I've been silent for 30 years because I was afraid. Afraid of what he might do to me, afraid of losing everything I'd built, afraid of being alone. But I'm not afraid anymore, and neither should any of you be." The room is completely silent now, everyone hanging on her words. Marcus Kellerman is not a pillar of the community. He's a predator who's been hiding behind charity events and corporate respectability while destroying lives. And it ends tonight. That's when the FBI agents Jake contacted walk into the ballroom. They don't make a scene. They don't need to. They simply walk up to Marcus and quietly place him under arrest for securities fraud, conspiracy, and racketeering. The charges we couldn't make stick individually have been bundled together into a federal case that he can't buy or intimidate his way out of. As they lead him away in handcuffs, Marcus looks at me one more time. But instead of fear or anger, I see something unexpected in his eyes. Respect. Like he's finally realized he underestimated the wrong person. The aftermath is swift and brutal. Catherine is arrested at her home 2 hours later. The evidence of her involvement in the conspiracy is overwhelming, and unlike Marcus, she doesn't have the resources for a prolonged legal battle. Vanessa surfaces 3 days later, trying to negotiate immunity in exchange for testimony against Marcus and Catherine. She's finally realized that her loyalty to them was never reciprocated. She was just another expendable asset in their operation. The company collapses within a week. The board fires everyone connected to Marcus's inner circle, but it's too late. The stock becomes worthless. The SEC freezes all assets, and bankruptcy is inevitable. But here's the beautiful part. I saw it coming. Remember when I told Vanessa at the bistro that I'd moved our investments? That wasn't just a threat, it was the truth. 3 months ago, when I first discovered her affair, I quietly liquidated our entire portfolio and reinvested everything in Marcus's competitors. While his company was crashing, I was getting rich. The final tally: Marcus gets 15 years in federal prison. Catherine gets 8 years and forfeits her law license. Vanessa gets probation in exchange for her testimony, but her career in the tech industry is over. James wins the mayoral election in a landslide, running on a platform of government transparency and ethics reform. Tom gets his wife the mental health treatment she needs and starts his own security consulting business. Robert gets hired as a forensic accountant with the FBI. Frank's daughter Kelly enrolls in a different college and slowly starts rebuilding her life. And me? I end up owning a significant stake in 3 different tech companies, including the one that bought Marcus's assets out of bankruptcy. But the real victory isn't financial. 6 months after the gala, I'm sitting in Jake's bar reading a newspaper article about Marcus's sentencing hearing. He looked old and broken in the courtroom photos, nothing like the confident predator who used to drive around in a Bentley. "Any regrets?" Jake asks, pouring me a whiskey. I think about it for a moment. Do I regret destroying my marriage? Do I regret ruining multiple lives? Do I regret becoming the kind of person who plans elaborate revenge schemes? No, I say finally. They made their choices. I just made sure there were consequences. Jake nods. You know, when you first walked in here, I thought you were just another angry husband looking to catch his wife cheating. I never expected you to burn down half the city. I didn't burn anything down, I correct him. I just lit a match and let them do it themselves. That's the truth, and it's what lets me sleep at night. Everything that happened to Marcus, Catherine, and Vanessa was a direct result of their own actions. I didn't frame them or fabricate evidence or destroy innocent people. I just made sure their crimes had consequences. The house feels different now that Vanessa is gone. Bigger, somehow. Cleaner. I've redecorated, gotten rid of everything that reminded me of her, and turned her home office into a library. I still work from home, but now I'm managing a portfolio worth 8 figures instead of playing what she called my investment hobby. I've hired Margaret Kellerman as my financial advisor. She turned out to have a brilliant mind for business once she was free from Marcus's shadow. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd just divorced Vanessa quietly, taken half of everything, and walked away. Would I be happier? Would I be a better person? But then I remember Tom's wife in the psychiatric hospital, Robert working at a grocery store, Frank's daughter dropping out of college, and all the other lives Marcus and Catherine destroyed over the years. Someone had to stop them. Someone had to make sure there were consequences. It just happened to be me. I raise my glass to the empty bar and toast the man I used to be, the fool who thought love and trust were enough, who believed in playing by the rules, who never imagined he was capable of the kind of calculated revenge that destroys lives. That man is gone. In his place is someone harder, smarter, and infinitely more dangerous. Someone who learned that sometimes the only way to get justice is to become the villain in someone else's story. And you know what? I wear it better than any of them ever wore their masks.